please.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Father, as we gather today to do the county business, we ask for a special blessing for our country, for all the turmoil that's going on, and for all the people that are affected by the COVID virus. Also, Lord, we want to give you special thanks for the moisture you've benefited us with and will continue to benefit us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Well, good morning, all. I will echo Larry's thankfulness for the rain. I think I've done a happy dance all week long, so it's been a good week, and hopefully it'll continue. The only other comment I might have is tomorrow's election day. I'd encourage all who have already not voted in advance or submitted mail ballots to get out and vote. Take advantage of this opportunity. Having said all that, on our agenda, any additions, corrections, comments, guys?
Mr. Chairman, I would suggest that the waiver of the 3360 North 8th be taken off of this week's agenda and moved to a subsequent meeting.
Okay.
Second.
Any further additions or corrections about a complete motion in for the agenda, or was that what your motion was?
Well, I would think we need to take it off, so I would
Okay.
move that we have the amended agenda with that item deleted.
Okay.
And
Is there a second for that one?
And I think that's what Larry seconded.
Okay. Well, all in favor of that motion, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. Motion's carried. Consent agenda.
Dr. Clifford, I'll move to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second.
Dave, thank you. Been moved and seconded to approve the consent agenda. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion has carried. Public comment. Any comment from the public on items not related on the agenda? Anything online, Dory, that you know of? Okay. Let's whip right into the business items. Proclamation of the National Health Center Week. I guess I better find that, huh?
6.
I got to read it. All right. We have no representative for that, so I will read the proclamation for the National Health Center Week of 2020. Whereas for over 50 years, community health centers have provided high quality, affordable, comprehensive primary and preventative health care in our nation's underserved communities, delivering value to and having a significant impact on America's healthcare system. Whereas as the county's largest primary care network, community health centers are the health care home for 30 million Americans in over 14,000 communities across the nation. 1 in every 12 people in the United States gets their care in a community health center. Whereas community health centers are a critical element of the health system, serving both rural and urban communities and often providing the only accessible and dependable source of primary care in their communities, nationwide, community health centers serve 1 in every 5 residents of rural areas. Whereas community health centers serve as beacons of essential resources and support in testing and treatment in the face of the global coronavirus pandemic, and will continue to offer reliable, affordable, high-quality care against COVID-19 for America's most vulnerable and underserved communities. Whereas everyday community health centers develop new approaches to integrating a wide range of services beyond primary care, including oral health, vision, behavioral health, and pharmacy services to meet the needs and challenges of their communities. Whereas community health centers are governed by patient majority boards, ensuring that the patients of each health center are engaged in their own healthcare decisions. Whereas community health centers are locally owned and operated small businesses that serve as critical economic engines helping to power local economies by generating $54.6 billion in economic activity in some of the country's most economically deprived communities. Whereas community health centers nationally employ more than 236,000 people, including physicians, nurse practitioners, physician assistants, certified nurse midwives, who work as a part of the multidisciplinary clinical teams designed to treat the whole patient. Whereas the community health center model continues to prove an effective means of overcoming barriers to healthcare access, including geography, income, and insurance status, improving healthcare outcomes, and reducing healthcare system cost. Whereas community health centers reduce overall cost of care by helping manage patients' chronic conditions, which keeps them out of the costlier healthcare settings like hospital emergency rooms. Whereas community health centers are on the front lines of emergency healthcare crisis, providing access to care of our nation's veterans, addressing the opioid epidemic, and responding to public health threats in the wake of natural disasters. Whereas National Health Center Week offers the opportunity to celebrate America's over 1,400 health center organizations with over 12,000 service daily sites, their dedicated staff, board members, patients, and all those responsible for the continued success and growth since the first health care centers opened their doors more than 50 years ago. Whereas during National Health Center Week, we celebrate the legacy of America's community health centers and their vital role in shaping the past, present, and future of America's health care system. Now, therefore, I, Dwayne Drees, Finney County Board of County Commission Chairman, do hereby proclaim August 9th through the 15th, 2020 as National Health Center Week. I encourage all Americans to take part in this week by visiting their local health center and celebrating the important partnership between America's community health centers and the community they serve. There's a lot of whereases. Okay. It's a good National Healthcare Center Week, folks, so enjoy. All right.
You need a motion for that or just?
I don't think we do. No, it's just a proclamation.
Just an exercise for you.
Yeah.
Good job.
It's a lot of reading for me, tell you what. All right, let's move on. Ladies from the zoning, we've got some plats and so forth to talk about today.
Good morning.
Hi, Alicia.
Thought I'd bring you a full agenda before I leave you for a little bit.
You do have a lot on your plate.
Is that on? I don't hear it very well.
It's on
Oh, Doug was looking for
We
double A
better have
batteries
her come
for
up
that thing
here.
the
earlier.
screen.
Dwayne, you never come up.
Can you guys hear back there? We're having trouble. Either that or come up here if you would, if you risk it.
I'll come up.
Now, good morning, can we hear each other?
And you were here to know that we pulled the waiver.
Yes, I was.
I wanted to make sure we're all on the same page.
We
Now,
are.
we should pull that microphone, that one over there closer. There you go. All right.
Now Dave's happy. We gotta have Dave happy.
Okay, the first plat I have before you is case FC 2020 PA-45, the Clay Stuber plat. It's at the 13,000 block of Beefland Road in Finney County and will contain 9.37 acres. And what they're doing is there's some grain bins on there that they use, and what they just want to do is sell the property to the owners of the bins instead of having to lease it.
Photograph looks like there's nothing on it.
Yeah, our aerials are not up to date, but there are some bins on there.
Okay.
And I don't believe there were any questions. It's zoned ag. However, if they decide to further develop it, they'll have to rezone it to rural industrial to be conforming to the zoning regulations.
Because of the green bins.
Correct.
So, Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question? This is step one of two steps then
to get this ready for a building, is that correct? We've got to
Correct.
Plat it first?
Yep, you have to apply it first, and then before we issue any building permits, rezone it. Not everybody comes and does the rezone at the same time. We encourage them to, but if it's not in their plans to do anything with it for a while, then we understand.
Okay, then my second question, is this plat a result of the landowner requesting that, or is this a result of your department doing what the commission asked you to do?
It's the landowner. We've had quite a few of the grain bins come in recently. I'm not sure what the deal is, but they seem to not want to lease the property anymore. They just want to go ahead and sell it to them.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'll move for approval of FC 2020 PA-45 Kleisthuber plat.
And this is Lon, I would second.
Any further discussion on the motion? If not, all those in favor of approving the plat signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
The second plat I have before you is FC 2020 PA-51, the Askren facility number 2. As you see, there are two different Askren facilities. What they're doing is the same thing. This one's located at 8170 North Scott Road, and the Garden City Co-op currently leases the property, and they would like to buy it now from the property owner. And this one is the first of two. We did them as two separate plats because the lots are not connecting. So it's easier if we do them on two separate plats than as one.
Mr. Chairman, this Dave, I will offer a motion to approve the first of the two requested plats.
Dr. Clifford, seconds.
Any further discussion on that motion for the plat, the second of the two plats from the co-op? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the second one is FC 2020 PA-46, the Askren facility number 1, the 8520 North Scott Road. And like I said, same thing, the co-op currently leases it. However, they would like to buy the property from the owner now.
I'll make that motion to approve the plat.
I'll second.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
The
You're
last,
getting through these awfully fast.
do you want me to slow down on it? The next one I have is FC 2020 PA-47, the Baker Edition. It's located at the 9000 block of East Parallel Road. If you recall, a couple meetings ago, we brought the rezone. They rezoned this whole 60 acres to rural residential. What they've done is they've broken it up to 3 lots and 20 acres each. And what they want to do is sell it so somebody can build a house on it. They have a demand for larger lots in the county.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make the motion to approve that plat.
And this is Lon, I would second the motion.
All right, we did rezone this a month or two ago, correct?
Correct.
So this finishes that project
Yep.
for them then.
It finishes it out.
All those in favor of the motion signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion has carried.
And then I'm going to have Melissa come up because this is actually her amendment.
She was busy. There's a lot of words here, Melissa.
Well, hopefully I can condense it down for you gents this morning. Thank you for
Good
your
morning.
time. Good morning. What we're presenting today is an amendment to the zoning code regarding renewable energy. Over the last year, we've had requests come into our office asking us what the processes are for installing solar farms and then single site wind energy turbines. And so after reviewing our code and what is currently available in the renewable energy market, we realized our code wasn't as up to date with that market. So in 2009, the county board did set out a procedure for wind farms, which would be a conditional use permit. There were no further regulations or requirements besides a development agreement and a site plan. After reviewing codes in other counties, such as Harvey County, the city of Colby, Sumner County, and then some of the sample ordinances from the U.S. Department of Energy, the National Association of Counties, and the American Planning Association, we propose further steps and processes for solar farms and wind farms to follow within our county, which gives property owners a little more guidance on how those developments will occur. One of the most important pieces to that is the decommissioning of wind turbines and solar farms, so the land can go back to its original purpose or a new use, which we thought was very important for our county. We did go in and only touch agricultural and rural industrial districts at this time regarding renewable energy, and we developed some new definitions for single site solar, which is an accessory use. You don't have to go through an additional board. So if you wanted to put a solar panel on your property or a solar array, you could come in and pull a building permit for that. If you would like to do a single site wind turbine, a solar farm, or a wind farm, that has to go through the conditional use process. And we've outlined some steps that people need to take in order to do that process. As I've stated, we're only going in and amending sections of the agricultural, rural industrial, medium, light to medium industrial, and heavy industrial. And then as I've stated, the processes are outlined. There will be an application. During the Planning Commission, we did have Curtis Peterson come from Wheatland Electric, and he was just wanting people to know that there are sometimes connection agreements that are needed when you want to do solar or wind on your property, and notifying people of that procedure. They do have a rare case where they'll ask to be independent of the power company to completely be reliable on their own wind or solar energy. That's a rare case, and we would address those as they come into our office. The alternatives before you: you may approve the resolution to amend Finney County zoning regulations as presented. You may approve it with changes, or you may not approve the resolution to amend the Finney County zoning regulations. Staff recommends alternative 1, to approve the amendment as presented. The Planning Commission recommended approval of the amendment as presented at the July 16, 2020 meeting. And now I can take any questions.
Okay, questions?
On the single source wind generator, is there a size limit?
Right now, as it's written, we are limiting those to 100 kilowatts. We found that in our research, people aren't really going over 100 kilowatts for those.
So that's not one of the, you couldn't build one of those great big towers there.
No.
That's
Yeah.
the question I had.
There was a height restriction too, was there not, on
If it's in the airport.
If it's they have to meet certain height restrictions, and we did put a height requirement shall not exceed 200 feet. We do allow them to get a height variance through the conditional use process, but it'll have to meet it with our local zoning regs, like the airport overlay districts and whatnot, and any federal aviation height requirements as well.
Alfred?
The solar, you're restricted to 20 feet. I mean, some of these things are like discs. Are we not restricting certain installations?
At the time, from the research that we've done and what we've been asked to produce, we haven't had any of the taller systems come through where they're they turn as the sun goes, so we haven't had that. We feel that 20 feet high is pretty high for those systems, including any transformers or transmission boxes that need to be set up. They sit low to the ground and create a visually appealing look that you can still look out onto the land. Should we encounter somebody that wants to go higher, we can always address that in a variance request and or amend the regulations in the future should we see that happening more.
What if I want to put it on my roof? Do I have to meet the 50-foot front and back and the 30-foot side setbacks?
Yes, you just have to have it attached to your, if you're attaching it to your roof, it's just a permit. You come in and get a building permit. You don't need to get a conditional use permit. So you'll need to meet everything to meet code for your zoning district on your house.
So what if my house is closer than 30 feet to the property line? I can
If
put
it's-
solar on my roof?
Yes, you'd be allowed to get a building permit to put it on your roof.
You could do that.
Yes.
No further questions.
Dave?
Mr. Chairman, this day I was present as that was discussed, and the only conflict, if you will, was, as she mentioned, the representative from Wheatland Electric saying some people are putting in generation equipment and we need to know about that because electrocute a lineman repairing it down the line. And so they have a neat fix, I think, in how the customer, the person who is wanting to install some of this equipment gets a checklist and instruction, and how the Wheatland Electric folks, for example, are kind of included in that discussion. So I think it was well thought out, and I would offer a motion to approve it's actually resolution number 220, I think. Those exceptions that are being discussed here are still available through conditional use in some other ways. So this kind of gives you a playing field that's for most everybody.
Dr. Clifford seconds.
Okay, further discussion. Ron?
Well, first of all, I appreciate all the work you've done to, and yes, we need to update things. Mine, where I'm most attentive with regard to these, and this is Lon speaking to those who are online, I should say, is the decommissioning. And I'm glad that you referenced that. When I look at that in the green print here, number 10 or something, I don't remember what that's part of. It says the foundation materials to be removed to a minimum depth of 4 feet. Is that pretty much what you found then in these Harvey County and Colby and all these other places? Because I know that's one of the huge issues is the decommissioning and the depth of that foundation for being able to use that land productively in the future.
In working with farmers and whatnot, if they wanted to refit that, 4 foot's kind of the industry standard. However, if a property owner came to us and said, the 4 foot's going to interfere with my the drainage on my property or future, we would definitely work with that property owner and applicant to make sure that that's aware. And that is a condition through the conditional use permit process, that if a property owner had concerns, could come and say, hey, I want to request more, and we'd work through that process with them.
Well, and I'm assuming too, and you may or may not be able to speak to this, that's in the contracts with the landowners as they set up these leases for the towers and so forth. Would you agree that that's part of those contracts as well?
It is part of those contracts, and then what we've further regulated solidifies even further down the contract line. So if those turbines get sold as a package deal to another company, we as a county help protect our property owners, that at least we're asking that they remove 4 feet below grade.
Okay. Yeah, I appreciate that, and appreciate, again, your diligence in working through all this. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
My comment, I guess, this industry's not mature, but it's been around for a while. Hopefully you picked up any mistakes or corrections other counties would have wished they would have done. Have you feel pretty confident that you covered the bases that they did not 15 years ago?
Yes, one of the things that we've been able to do is be on the front line of renewable energy standards for our county. One of the changes that has occurred since a lot of counties have passed these ordinances is the distance requirement, because the towers and the technology has advanced, especially for single site wind energy, those towers that they're erected to are engineered to collapse upon themselves. So we actually have a shorter distance requirement of just half the height tower, which makes it easier for property owners to place these within their properties. You still have to have them half the height from a building, property line, or public road, but because of the way that the engineering is done on those towers, which we would require that certification to come through with the application, we feel that they're very safe, that they fall and collapse upon themselves to limit more damage. So we open up more options for property owners to have these within our county.
Okay, excellent.
Well, this question, do you get a lot of applications for solar arrays on houses? Is that, you get more and more of those, or?
I haven't had anybody come through the county. We have within the city of Garden City had questions asked about solar arrays on houses. And one gentleman wanted to attach it to his garage, and as long as they meet building code and attaching that, connecting it into their electrical grid, and have a connection agreement with their utility, it's a permitted use.
The city have the same kind of agreement that Wheatlands has on?
They do have an interconnection agreement for renewable energy to connect into the power grid.
Further questions, comments? Hearing none. All in favor of the motion to approve the amendment to our articles, signify by saying aye. Aye.
It's actually a resolution.
Any objections? Any nays? Okay. Motion carried, unanimous.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to ask Melissa one question that's not related to this subject while she's present. And that is, Commissioner Jones brings it up every meeting, the census.
Awesome, thank
And-
you.
and, but how are we coming with the census, in your opinion, both Finney County and region-wide, because you're heavily involved in that?
Yes, we have had a great, when the first census came out that way, we had a great uptick. We were one of the higher response counties for Southwest Kansas. We're still one of the higher response counties. We just heard that there is the potential, they did extend it to October 31st, but there is the potential that Congress will not approve that extension. So we may only have till September, the end of September to close out that. Please continue to encourage, be the difference, make a difference, fill out your census. There's funding out there that if you don't let us know who or needs are in our community, one way we find that out is through the census. So we are doing well. We've slowed a little, and so we're working on getting an uptick and push to finish us out. Surveys should have gone out to all households within Finney County, Garden City, and Holcomb. And so they're starting to do their non-response follow-up. So you'll see people within the community knocking on doors, heading out to farms, making sure that everybody is responding. This week kicks off Rural Census Week, and so we are passing along. Sarah McClure has been a fantastic asset in helping us share and get the word out through social media about the census, and we've given her some tools and tips on how to spread the word for Rural Census Week. So,
And Mr. Chairman, just one follow-up. I was in Grant County a week ago, and one of the issues that they're running into in Grant County are people who are fearful of the census asking for more information that they want to give. Would you, just since we're online and so forth, would you alleviate that fear?
The census is completely safe, secure, and easily accessible through online. The data that they capture, your name and address, is not shared for over 80 years. That's how they do genealogical research. But when they give you your name, phone number, and address, that goes into a secure database that only the Census Bureau can access. No other agency can access that data unless requested, like a regular citizen would go in and request, and they never release names, phone numbers, or specific addresses to people's homes.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that we're receiving so much other clutter in our mail that I'm just fearful that people are throwing them away with the other political cards that we've received.
Yeah, we've had a fantastic response to the my2020census.gov. It's easy. It takes literally 5 to 10 minutes. May take a little longer if you've got 20 people in your household, but we want all 20 people counted. So take the time, fill out the census for everyone living in your house at that time.
And I did so.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you for allowing me that.
Okay. We do have another resolution, ladies.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
This is number 21, dealing mainly with the folks on Old Post Road.
Yes,
correct?
if you guys recall, this was brought up sometime last year where one of the property owners had animals and they kind of wanted to resolve this. It's taken a little bit for us to get to where we are today just because we tried to reach out to everybody out there, notified them, sent letters. We even went out to the properties that we hadn't heard responses from just to make sure that we can include as many properties as we can. So of the 23 properties, 19 people wanted their property rezoned to the rural residential, which allows them to have animals. That seems to be a concern. So the rural residential is the one that allows equine, bovine, chickens, goats, I believe. There's quite a few. It just gives them more of a variety. And since a lot of people out there had kids that are in 4-H, this gives them the opportunity to have more animals and be in compliance.
And these numbers are based on lot size or just all across the board?
We did both. The minimum requirement for rural residential is actually half an acre. So we went with the rural residential and just did everybody as rural residential. That way we don't have the issue of somebody saying, well, my neighbor can do it, why can't I? Because the suburban estates only allows for 2 horses and chickens. So that's why we went with the rural residential. The people that decided not to have their property rezoned, they didn't have any complaints about the other neighbors. They just didn't want their property rezoned. Questions?
Is that objecting property owner that notch there in the map?
Yes.
Thank you.
It is kind of amazing looking at the map. Egress, someone looked up at the landlocked.
Yes. There seems to be an issue with some of that, which is why we couldn't quite go out to everybody's property, just because some of those properties have not been platted out there. So how they get their egress, ingress, we are unsure at this time. And we did speak to some of them about that, and they seem to not be concerned at this time about how they get to their property.
Something worked out with the neighborhood.
When you got, did you require written?
Yes, so what we did is I sent out letters, and with the letters, I put a paper in there for them to sign to say yes, that they wanted. That way we had their actual consent to say we want our property to rezone. And anybody who didn't want their property to rezone, I did request that they send us a letter or email us something that we could have on paper.
Very good, thank you. Questions for?
I would offer the motion to approve this. So it's all a rezone, correct?
Correct.
Resolution 21.
Resolution 21-2020.
I'll second 21-2020.
Further discussion? If not, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried.
Did you enjoy your vacation?
I wouldn't say it was a vacation. I'm not sure what I'm taking next is quite a vacation either, but we will see.
Depends on your definition, doesn't it?
Yes.
We missed you at the planning commission meeting.
Yes, and that I believe I should be at the next one.
Unless somebody has other plans.
Correct. But this will be the last meeting that I see you gentlemen for a while.
Congratulations.
Something happening in your family?
Best of luck. Thank you.
Thank
Good luck
you.
to you.
Okay, next on the agenda is a health department update activities. See Colleen back in the back. Skylar bothering her, so she can't come up, but she is on her way.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning. So I have just a couple of case number updates to talk to you all about. So have you all seen our recent updates on finneycounty.org? We've changed kind of our tables and some of the information that we're reporting on. So that's one of our updates. So we added our active monitoring number. So it's basically anyone that we have that are confirmed positive that we're monitoring because they're on quarantine and or isolation at home. And then also our positivity rate, we're now reporting that on our finneycounty.org website. So to give you some data, July 20th through the 24th, so 2 weeks ago, we tested a total of 162. 43 of those came back positive, which gave us a 27% positivity rate. The week prior, we had 21%. So as you can see, that was a 6% increase last week, or 2 weeks ago. Last week, so the dates of July 27th through the 31st, we tested 195. I so far have 28 positives from that group, and 58 results are still pending. So I'll have that report on that percentage rate at the end of this week, typically, once we have all those results that are still pending. Right now, we're averaging about 40 tests per day. So that's typically what we are seeing throughout the week, each day. Still doing yes send out and rapids in the morning time. We are expanding some rapids into the afternoon time frames to help with scheduling or more immediate concerns. Lately, the positives that we have seen that we have traced back, we have traced them back to mass gatherings, so birthday parties, barbecues, family reunions, those type of things. Those are kind of our big ticket items of where we're seeing several positives or several people contract coronavirus at one of those events. Other things to kind of update on, we are looking at several grants to fund the onboarding of more contact tracers, disease investigators, and rapid testers or mobile testing that we would like to begin looking into. I say that because contact tracing, disease investigation, since it's such a time commitment, that is my biggest piece that I need more staff to keep up on. So our current staff are trying to work in our clinic and see back to school immunizations, physicals, that type of thing. And they aren't able to keep up with everything and are now incurring several hours of overtime on the weekends because we have to prioritize that contact tracing and disease investigations. So really looking to look at grant funding to help expand our team to be able to follow up on these endeavors as well as maintaining our normal clinic operations.
Okay, questions, Lon?
Oh, and we have been working with schools, so USD 457 and 363, to look at their opening plans. We are still finalizing some small details with them, but we are working on setting up a process with them on helping us with contact tracing, disease investigations in the sense of how to do the reporting and building the plan on how to monitor for symptoms, what that screening and isolation process might look like at school, as well as all of the standards and protocols that we are putting in place with the school boards.
Okay, Lauren.
Mr. Chairman, and just for your information, I'm gonna have to leave for a few minutes here after Colin's presentation, but I'll be right back. Colin, somebody and quite honestly, I really don't remember who it was because I got so many phone calls and stuff last week about different issues. But somebody called me last week and said that they understood that the Red Cross was doing some testing, and their question was, if that in fact is true, then are those numbers being transported into the county's numbers? So can you speak to that at all?
I'm currently not aware of Red Cross specifically doing any testing. I can ask around my building, but that's not something I'm
I can
aware of.
answer that for you.
Sure.
I donate blood and then I get a COVID report. I mean, that's what it is, Lon. They're testing the donations.
They're
and
doing
letting
the antibody testing.
Yes, and letting
Okay.
the,
But they're not feeding that information. This was the question. They're not feeding that information to you then, and it's becoming a part of the numbers that you just referenced. Is that correct?
That is not part of my local reporting now.
I didn't even, I mean, I knew they were doing something as people were giving blood, but I hadn't even thought of it from that perspective until the caller asked me about it.
At the local level, we have results coming in from hospital and, Centura clinics, as well as Genesis, and then any outside counties, if they test any of our people.
Right.
We usually get those reported to us too. So whether it comes directly to us or through KDHE, that's how we're doing it. And then we track those numbers as well and report on those as our overall. And then our positivity rates are just off of specifically what we are testing at the health department, because then we know how many are total testing as well as positive and negative, so that we keep that as a tracking on our specific numbers to help represent the total population.
And then lastly, the lady who was giving us some information when we were serving as Board of Health in a lot of different meetings with regard to recovery rates, gave me an updated chart through the 31st of July that shows a 96% recovery rate. Would you agree? I mean, maybe not right down to that percentage, but would you agree that the recovery rate is still very high?
So I think, yes, in general terms, you can say that a recovery rate percentage is relatively high. I can't really speak to that exact percentage.
Right.
But yes, generally we are seeing recovery rates as being high. As you know, we haven't had any increases in deaths that have been reported. Our current hospitalization number as of today is 5. So those numbers have been staying pretty low. So overall, it looks like Finney County is doing well.
Thank you. And I wasn't trying to pin you down to a
Hey, no
specific
worries,
number, but yeah, and I did see hospitalizations at 5.
Sure.
Yeah, thank you.
Dave?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dave speaking. Colleen, I was going to ask you today a question that you already partly answered, and that is what specific kind of an event is the scene for all of these infections? And you said birthday parties and so on. Putting on your hat to advise the Board of Health, although we're meeting as county commission this morning, what, if anything, are you recommending that we do differently than we're doing today in the county to slow down this jump in numbers all of a sudden?
I mean, really, it goes back to those proactive measures that we have as public health kind of always preached, in the sense of social distancing, using masks, and avoiding large gatherings in that sense, because again, like I said, we keep seeing these clusters where these positives get traced back to some sort of gathering of some sort. So whether that was an event or a birthday or a reunion or whichever, those are really the biggest, best recommendations from public health standpoint is masks and social distancing.
I feel the birthday party problem, if you will, using that as an example, is something the public needs to know about. And I brought to Robert's attention, maybe he passed this on to you, a report that Harvey County puts out. Have you seen? They don't have nearly the numbers you do, but I'm going to read you a couple of things here.
Sure.
A female in her 50s, she had a known out-of-state travel to an area of COVID positivity. A male in his 40s, he has close contact with the family unit of a known active case. On and on through their positives. So the public looking at that can get a real quick explanation. Okay, that's something maybe I want to avoid. Maybe I want to avoid, in your example, the big birthday party. Is there some way that, I don't know if this has been shared with
No, I
you,
have not yet with her.
but I'll be happy to give you this copy. I visited with the county commissioner in Harvey County, and he said they have the blessing of the Kansas Department of Health to put this kind of a report out. It sure enlightens the public about what's going on. I appreciate what you're doing with the positivity rates and how many cases you're processing and so on. That's good knowledge. This would kind of complete the report so we know for more precisely what's going on. So I appreciate what you guys are doing, but I'll give you this when.
Sure.
I might respond to that, Dave. I think you just bought another employee, because it'd take a lot of labor to do that.
Well, they do it, Mr. Chairman, respectfully, their health department gives that information to their county emergency manager, and the health person, health department director, and their county administrator put that together, and this was published by their county administrator. So, yeah, he's about to get a boatload full, but it might be something that could be a shared responsibility. And
So if I may understand, kind of what you are recommending, you're recommending more so the real life stories of COVID positivity in Finney County, in the sense of, hey, this is an idea of where we are currently seeing COVID-19 contracted, and so these are our best recommendations of what to avoid.
that's
Like, I can summarize it that way, and I'm trying to find kind of the middle ground of that, because Harvey County, like you kind of prefaced, is they're not seeing nearly the amount of positives that we do here in Finney County. And so trying to compile a list like that will be laborious. And so I'm trying to find that middle ground of where can we kind of concentrate some of that information to help share that news and get that message across for
I
people.
expect, though, respectfully, I'm
Sure.
going to guess that you have a lot of that information already recorded. When you have a positive case, don't you have a conversation with this person and do a little bit of background? Do you have asking them, do they have an idea where they may have contracted this and so on?
Sure, and some of that happens pretty immediately after the positive case and that investigation is done. But then we also have several weeks later that you then have more positives that then you're now finally tracing them back to one party several weeks later. And so it may be kind of an ongoing compiling data list
I don't know.
that may be like 3-week-old information too. And so that's what I'm just saying is we would have to find a way to do it, but I'm willing to find ways to help it kind of become a more active.
Well, it's extreme demographics is my
Sure.
explanation. But when people ask us, and I was asked a couple days ago that you had a jump of 21 one day. Did we have any idea where those 21 were they all one family unit too? And I said, I have no idea.
So I will say that we have not seen numbers of like 7 or 8 in just one family in just one day. Typically you see 1 or 2 in one family, and then a couple of weeks later, another couple of family members. And so,
Okay, I understand.
Sure.
You got a boatload
Oh, yeah.
of work to do, but it's just, if the public had a little clearer picture of where this is taking place,
sure.
they may avoid some of those places. So, thank you.
We'll take a stab at trying to develop something a little bit, perhaps a little bit more informational.
Okay, thank you.
There'll be a lag time just because of the sheer numbers, but
Right.
let's see if we can do something a little bit more informational.
The other thing is to get those numbers down.
Well, Mr. Chairman, with regard to that, if my numbers are right, in, April, we had 550 new cases. In May, we had 921. In June, we had 94, and we spiked a little bit in July at 167. So the numbers aren't anywhere close to what they were in April and May, even though they've risen just slightly here in the last 30 to 60 days.
My only comment, Colleen, I'd be careful. Don't you get into privacy issues? You start listing traceability of where they contracted this, and you just can't put everything out there.
Yeah, and I think that's why kind of the recommendation of saying, hey, we're seeing an increase in positives traced back to family barbecues, birthdays. So generalizing those times,
You
I
haven't
think
traced
that's-
any back to a specific restaurant or anything like that, have you?
restaurants, no.
But I'll tell you, I've driven up to some restaurants and not even parked, seeing the number of cars out there. So, but there's no particular surveillance. I know we don't have fines, but is there anyone out there encouraging or discouraging large crowds?
Not that I am aware of. I think a lot of that is when we are trying to do an exact science on contact tracing, there are some things that generally we can make some best predictions on where transmission may have occurred. But again, people move all over the place. They go to all kinds of places. It does make it difficult, and we're doing our best with that type of information.
Yeah, and then Dr. Clifford again, I think we've done a great job in the county since we reopened in early June. I mean, Lon's numbers bring it out. And because I've been campaigning, I've been all over the first district.
Sure.
And it is all over the place on masking and different events. Like Ellis County there was a large dance in a county facility outbreak. So they've limited the use of county buildings to 50 guests and no more, and that's canceled a bunch of wedding receptions and things.
Sure.
Riley, of course, folks who are interested in K-State football, they still have a 2,000 maximum cap on public events. That's a waiver even to get to that number, and that has big implications at K-State. So I know we haven't imposed restrictions. I'm glad, because I think our citizens have taken your advice seriously. I'm glad to see that the vaccines are being fast-tracked. I was over in McPherson, and Pfizer is ramping up production of the vaccine, even though they only just entered phase 3. So I'm very optimistic about the availability of vaccination. Whether folks will take it or not is another story, but it looks like we might get herd immunity out of maybe 60% vaccination rates, which would be pretty low. So again, I think your emphasis on social distancing, masks, and hygiene are appropriate, and folks have to manage their own risk and avoid these really intense gatherings. And again, I will not go into a restaurant if I see a full parking lot personally. So I'd rather we weren't in the position of mentioning specific properties, but I think we owe it to the public to at least mention behaviors. But thanks for your work. I think it's been excellent since, the spike.
Sure.
If I may, Commission, we've had a couple of comments that I think people aren't hearing you as well today. So maybe if everyone would just speak up a little bit and into their mics, I think that would help our online viewers. Thank you.
For the public's information, we were just chastised as commissioners for not speaking into our mics. So,
Mr. Chairman,
Larry.
can I suggest a break at this time so we go ahead and get the spark meeting set up since
We had one more deal on. Do you want to go ahead and do it and we'll get out
I
of
think
order?
we should take a break first.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. We are going to take a 10-minute break, and we're going to move Road and Bridge Public Works updates until after our Spark grant.
Well, they can be next, but
Oh,
I
okay.
just want to get the meeting started before it times out.
All right. All right. You are next after all. So, all right, 10-minute break. We will resume 9 John, come up.
Morning, sir.
Good morning.
Morning, guys.
Morning.
Who's first?
I guess I am. It rained last week, so not a whole lot was done on any projects.
We like that.
Yeah, I bet you do. Some of the utility trench on Jenny Barker Road, they started but kind of pushed it off and they went home early last week. Some of the water line relocation modifications was done last week. Contractor will start. They've been screening sand out of the pit, Foltz pit, or that pit over there, to use on a project for later. They'll bring in their dirt guys to dig the ditch from the new box to DD2 here, maybe this week, maybe the next week. So that's kind of been delayed because of the rain. I think they said maybe three rain days since days of no work being charged. They've used up 24 out of 250 working days on the Jenny Barker project so far. Our asphalt overlay on Finney Scott line, that is scheduled to start tomorrow. If it's raining, they'll delay until we can get pavement dry or whatever, but that is the plan, get to start tomorrow or later this week. Farmland Road, we've met with all but one property owner. That's about all that really of interest there, I think, so far. The only other issue we had maybe the last week is sewer district number 2. The last couple of weeks we've had issues with one lift station collecting mop heads, and we burnt up 4 pumps in 2 weeks. Somehow they're getting them industrial mops into the sewer, and the pumps do not like them. So we may try to write letters to send to them, whoever's cleaning crew, and if they have some of them industrial strength toilets, they say that will flush about anything. And so.
All right. Questions for John?
John, a couple things. I had a call on 3rd Street. Didn't we buy a lit up stop sign at one time?
We
were gonna do a deal with KDOT.
We told KDOT we'd buy one. Local district, Ron sent it up to Topeka, and at last I talked to him maybe a month ago, he hasn't heard anything from Topeka.
Well, I might
Take that long.
Yeah, you might quiz them again.
I don't
Maybe
think
you
it
just-
takes long if they don't want it.
Maybe we should just buy it and put it up and then ask for forgiveness.
I've kind of been guilty of that before.
Because if you wait on them, it doesn't look like. And then second thing I was going to notice the other day, Holcomb Lane, do you have anything scheduled on that? Because it seemed like when we were diverting all that truck traffic around the southern way,
Holcomb Lane was done,
the north-south part of it, not the parallel.
right, it was done.
Boy, it's getting awful. It looks like it's not holding up as well as I thought it should.
It's not on the list anytime soon, since
Yeah.
there's other roads that haven't been hit yet.
Yeah, but I think with the amount of traffic they have received, you might want to look at it again.
Okay, well, that and Old 83 and yeah, I mean, yeah, we'll look at it again. We can squeeze that back in there again for something else. Or it's been 6 years or so, I think, since we had done it.
Last time we didn't mill it, we just overlaid it, didn't we?
I don't think we milled it, no.
Yeah, I don't think it's ever been milled. I think it's always just been overlaid. Okay, thank you.
Further questions for John? Roger.
All right, I'll just give them my little monthly report that I'm gonna send in here in a couple days. Anyway, I'll probably get this passed around. The bottom left sign has been ordered. That's the one I went with.
You might pull the microphone to you since we've been chastised.
Getting chastised. Is she left? Where's she? Oh, okay. Yeah, okay.
Keep monitoring.
Personnel, we're 6 EOs short. 2 event workers, 1 noxious weed, 1 mechanic, but we are advertising for 2 equipment operators, an event worker, and a noxious weed. So if you know anybody with a CDL, send them my way. The building maintenance is fully staffed. That's the building maintenance and custodial staff are there full. Expenditures, just some FYI stuff. We're looking at the agreements for all the county generators. This has been kind of a strung out deal. I'm talking to a couple different companies about running load bank tests on them. Talking with the fire marshal, they think this is probably a good idea for, at least for the generators that supply electricity to buildings that house people. Those are the big deals. We're evaluating Johnson Control contracts. We have a meeting with them finally tomorrow at 2 p.m. Johnson Controls does all our fire and sprinkler inspections, and then they do a lot of repair. I think we can do a little better on our pricing, so we're having a meeting with them tomorrow on that. City County are splitting a cost on sidewalks around the library. There's going to be some work going on up there, and it's going to be a City County cost split on that.
Get rid of the uneven.
Yep. We are patching, the work crews, they're patching Finney Scott line on the West Fork, Mineola, or Mennonite. Mineola. Yeah, we're down in Mineola. We do have a lot of road damage, dirt road damage due to the rain, especially out in the southern part. We've had a lot of rain over there. Mowing's going slow and the weeds are growing fast. So we are going to hear about that, I'm sure. But we are trying. Wildwood, we got the sign's been ordered. Did I tell you the Renaissance Festival wants to come here next year? Okay, I covered that with you before. Over the weekend, just FYI, we had 61 visit the park. We've been averaging 10 to 12 a day during the week. Solar lights have been ordered to illuminate the area around the pay box, the fee box. And we're going to start looking at some grants for the park. Roxanne helps with that. Building maintenance has been using the COVID fogger to do buildings. You know, if something comes in hot or if they just want it done, we can go in and decontaminate the area. It's worked out real well. We have 3 staff members trained in that. The fair is over, and it went pretty good considering it was just a exhibit fair only, you know, so it went fairly well. New for everybody. Noxious weed is fighting the rain and the wind also. They're having troubles keeping up. Rex has been busy with building a bunch of COVID guards, sneeze guards, whatever you call them, for the election booths. Did my first MSHA training in quite a while, just an FYI. Got the gang back together and did some fall from heights. So MSHA put out a please teach this bulletin because there've been several miners killed in accidents here lately from falling. So they requested we do a training on falling. That was done. I am looking at an electrical charge station at the fairgrounds. I guess this is a big deal. These little electric cars are running all over the country and there's nowhere to charge. And you can charge them for charging. So kind of looking into that.
Aren't we short of power as a rule down there already?
The fairgrounds?
Yeah.
Well, it would be out in the parking lot.
Okay,
Yeah, yeah,
I guess I was thinking of the exhibition.
yeah. It'd be out on the exhibition parking lot. You got all the hookups out there. And I've talked to a couple different people on that, and there is a fast charge station in Liberal. That's the only one around in this area that's a fast charge station. And I guess this is just the preliminary. I'm just sticking my toe in the water to see what this all entails. So
There's not one in Garden at all.
there's charge stations, but supposedly not a fast charge station.
Have to call Dr. Luther Fry, he's an electric car expert.
Is he okay?
Yeah, if you, Dr. Clever, if you have an electric car like a Tesla, you have an app and it shows all the stations, and it also shows the homeowners or business owners who are willing to allow you to use their charger.
And that's what got this started. I went to chase a guy out of the parking lot that was hooked up to our electrical out there. And I rolled up and we got to talking, and we are on that app as a charge station right now, unbeknownst to us.
He's getting free.
So he was getting free electricity, so we had to talk. But that's how all this evolved.
The probably are sources through Wheatland or certainly through Tesla. There was money originally to fund the national network. I don't know if the local cooperatives might not help you on that.
I don't know. I'll look into it. This gentleman thought that, between, Amarillo and Wichita, there's basically nothing other than the Liberal station. And of course, a lot of commerce comes through Garden. Something I'm looking at, kind of interesting. And I think that's enough.
Yeah, questions for Roger?
So 2 questions. I was on a conference call concerning cement companies, quarries and others, and they have a lot to say about MSHA. Are they really judge and jury on some of these things? I mean, they're making the inspection and they're fining you.
Yes.
And to whom do you appeal? Them?
Them.
Yes. So they have the whole package.
MSHA is like OSHA on steroids. It's, yeah. So that's why when they requested I teach this, I got
They're
taught.
gonna do it.
Yeah.
And at algae bloom, there are issues in a number of the state lakes, any issues in Wildwood?
No, that's, and actually KDWP monitors that.
Okay.
That's all on them. Yeah. For them
Thanks.
to monitor.
Thank you.
Anything further? All right, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
All right. Need to visit with our Spark grant with our consultants and so forth. Are they online?
Yes. Jeff, are you there?
I'm here. Good morning, everybody.
Morning. Good morning, Jeff.
It was great to see you all last week face to face, and talk to you about the Spark grant and how we're going to be able to leverage things. I just want to give you a brief update as to what we learned, and then answer any of the questions that you all may have. First off, I just want to say thank you for the hospitality. You've got a tremendous team, and really much of the work that you did prior to this disaster, in terms of community vibrancy, economic development, really, I think, lessened the overall impact of COVID-19 on the county. It was a really great thing to see. I think one of the biggest things that we discussed throughout is the plan to leverage multiple grant programs. So we educated a lot of folks about FEMA public assistance and how we can leverage some of the expenditures that may have been under Spark to allow it to go for, allow the Spark grant to go further. Also, the health department applying for the KDHE grant, Colleen is looking at almost $900,000, which is fantastic. I know in our update earlier, she talked about contact tracers and everything else. So, that was a really great piece to be able to go at and get there forward to allow the Spark dollars to go forward. I think one of the biggest things that we heard is really a focus on long-term community recovery and kind of long-term community investment versus short-term closure of documents, short-term closure of costs. I think that really matches with the culture of the community that we heard. I think it's very supportive, want to see people be able to come into the community and grow overall. Some some of the major areas that we think that we saw, both needs that match the Spark funding priorities and desires from you all and the different departments and leaders that community leaders that we met with, was really a focus on dealing with long-term issues that you've had, such as housing and childcare. I think there was a lot of concern expressed about mental health and the mental health needs of the community as it relates to the overall impact of the pandemic. I also think that there was a strong focus on technology improvement. For example, educationally, there was a lot of desire to get devices into the hands of folks. There was a desire for improvement in the telehealth, recognizing that a lot of people are going to Wichita or Topeka for some specialized care, and maybe we can adjust that a little bit and provide that here. There was a really strong focus on increasing, kind of broadband fiber, not only running broadband from the health department down to the fairgrounds to address some of the challenges that we had, but also, the city, melding together the city and the county fiber projects to make sure that we can do the best good for the community. And then also, there's some online learning transition items, USD 457, 363, and even the community college all had some items that they wanted to include there. We're going to be working with staff, and I'll share my screen now and hope that you can see this. I'll stand by 1 second. It's always the Zoom technology that makes it interesting. Okay. Just to give you an idea from a roadmap perspective, we've really been working already with many of the agencies that we met with, and even some that we haven't, to really kind of collect and determine what items that are out there. We're working with staff tomorrow and Wednesday to kind of go through a reimbursable process. We're going to be able to integrate some technology so that we ensure accountability and transparency as to where every dollar is spent, but then also ensure that we process things effectively and very quickly so that we can get things going. From kind of a program design and implementation perspective, the meetings that we had with you all, the items that we've collected from the community impact and surveys and business and nonprofit surveys and all the stakeholder engagement really will funnel into a draft kind of prioritization matrix that we'll meet with staff on that, and then really come back to you all next week with a draft plan. We're shooting for the 10th to have your draft direct aid plan, which is due on the 15th. And then as discussed, we're probably going to have to do a special meeting, ideally sometime on the 13th, to have, a meeting direct there, to have the approval so that we can submit it forward to the state of Kansas. And then we have, reconciliation deadlines as we move forward, making sure that everything is done appropriately. Right now, we're still shooting for that December 31st timeline. As I mentioned, we don't know what's going to go on in Congress if the HEALS Act passed, how that's been extended, if deadlines or changed some funding flexibility. So here's our overall next steps and what we're looking for. Any questions that you all have
You are
in regards
unmuted.
to our meetings and, hopefully I captured most of everything that you expected. And our team really looks forward to working with you over the next couple of months.
Jeff, this is Dwayne, Commissioner. You have most of the requests in already that you're dealing with, or do you still expect a few more requests come in on the reimbursement side?
We've got a number of them. Most of everybody that we've met with has been excellent. We're going to launch that reimbursement portal on August 5th, which will make it a lot very streamlined, so that we can do a broad outreach if there's anybody that we missed on a governmental level, to be able to put get that in, put it in ASAP. So I do think that we're going to have 10 days there that we'll be able to be leaning forward. And again, we're going to collect these reimbursement requests prior to you all setting the funding priorities. So just because somebody has a reimbursement request doesn't necessarily mean you all as the commission need to reimburse it if it doesn't fit with your spending priorities locally.
Mr. Chairman.
Lon?
Jeff, this is Lon, and I visited with Ryan Ritta, president of the community college, last Friday, and I'm not going to talk specifics. I have visited with Robert about some of the specifics, but my question is this. After I visited with him, there seems to be some question about timing, and just as an example of getting the college reopened and so forth. And I know you sat and visited with Ryan the other day, but I want to ask it from a more global perspective this morning. How do we address the timing issues, whether they're applying to FEMA and waiting to hear back from FEMA? We're trying to get things open, but it would apply not just to the community college, it would apply to other entities as well. So how do we address that timing concern?
Absolutely, and I think that's where, I responded to Dr. Bruda late Friday night, based on, to address some of his concerns, Commissioner. And I think from an overall perspective, timing is going to be a challenge, and that can be one where you all can fund something on the front end with the expectation that they're going to go to FEMA to seek reimbursement for those items that are eligible, and then make sure that there's no duplication of benefits. Because one of the things that we still want to do is make sure that there is no, we want to try and make these organizations as whole as possible. So the community college, I'll use as the example. If they do get items reimbursed by FEMA, they're getting items reimbursed at 75%. So one of the items that you may want to include, and we would recommend including, is a pot of funding for the 25% match that they're required to do. State of Kansas typically does 10%, so that the local community is only responsible for 15% of the funding, but they haven't provided clarification if they're going to be able to do that under this round. So I think the bottom line is we can front the money, from this potentially, as long as there's no ultimate duplication of benefits.
Okay, Jeff, just a quick follow-up then. Would that be considered a grant? You and I discussed the other day the pros and cons of no interest loans versus grants, but would what you just suggested be done through a grant process, or are you talking about something different?
Yeah, we can do that from a grant process from Sparks and then potentially get that recovered. There's also the option of doing an expedited project worksheet with FEMA. So we can really evaluate the necessary situation on an individual basis. But there's a lot of flexibility that you do have from a commission perspective to be able to do it.
Thank you.
Larry?
Ultimately, just to kind of add one thing. I mean, ideally, we would let the FEMA process pay out and not have to front any money. But we'll see. We can look at each process. Each need specifically.
Jeff, I want to follow up a little bit on the timing issue. Some of these projects for the Sparks money, what do we do about our bid requirements? The size of some of these projects that we're talking about, how do we get around the bid requirements and the timing it takes for all that?
So what you're going to be beholden to is your local bid requirements. That was kind of called out on the federal level in terms of funding. So if there is something that needs to be bid, we want to try and bid that ASAP and do it in the shortest amount of time that you can allow for based on your local requirements. Ultimately, we need to allow for fair and open competition, small minority business inclusion. And one of the biggest things that I'll recommend throughout this entire process is sending any bid to the Small Business Administration and asking them to help share it out far and wide amongst their list. That will help ensure compliance, and positive steps for Chairman.
That doesn't sound like speeding the process up.
I know, but I also want to make sure that we're in compliance with everything. Unfortunately, there are a couple things that still need to happen that we can't get around.
Yeah, this may sound like a little bit of a political question. It's Dr. Clifford, but we also have audit committee on the 5th. Reassure me that all of this is off budget, none of us are gonna ever be called on the carpet for blowing up county spending by $12 million or what have you.
That's correct.
And even in the audit committee, we're not even going to address this money because we're going to look at
No, you'll treat,
expenses.
you'll treat these things as a non-budgeted item. It'll be a reimbursement. Actually, the state of Kansas is the one that is the grant recipient. We are sub-grant recipients, but we are responsible based upon the resolution you signed on about 3 weeks ago. And that's why the documentation is so paramount in these reimbursement applications, as well as the spend forward money. We're responsible in that regards. Also, Parametrics is developing an agreement that will also ask the recipients of this money from the county to sign off on. In essence, is them being responsible for providing us the accurate source documents for their expenditures, so we make sure that they comply with the agreement that we signed off on. But in essence, it is a pass through. It's a non-budgeted expenditure.
Thank you.
Further questions at the moment? Where do we go from here?
And Jeff, we have received an awful lot of good responses from the individuals that you and Alex interviewed over the last 3 days last week. So I just wanted to relay that to you as well. I know that we, I believe, this Wednesday, we have a meeting to review the reimbursement aspect of it. We might just reinforce the responsibilities of the Board of County Commissioners for this project.
Sure, and thank you for that, Robert. From where we go from here is, we're going to review, as Robert said, the portal that we're going to be using. And I think from a county commission standpoint, this week, what I would like your priorities to do is continue to interact with your constituents and make sure that we're surfacing issues. I think next week, when we get you that draft aid plan, it's going to be a quick turnaround. And there's nothing that we can do, given the state of Kansas's deadline, other than, the amount of work that's necessary. We just need a little bit of time to get that done. So we'll get that to you, probably on the 10th. So we want you to review it, be prepared, set aside a little bit of time over those couple days, and then hopefully on the 13th, be able to approve that draft spending plan. And on the 10th, we'll give you kind of an overall picture how we worked with the staff to be able to prioritize different items, and then, you all can provide us your recommendations, and we move forward on the 13th. So, and then as we move forward, it's going to continue to be, tracking and administration on our end, answering technical questions, and then from a board perspective, you all just making sure that, in talking with constituents, making sure there's nothing that needs to be adjusted.
Okay. So, gentlemen, we'll need to meet on the 13th. So, any 8:30 normal time work for you guys?
Yes, that's fine.
So, we'll get that on our agenda if you would. Any further questions of Jeff or anything about our process? I think it's timetable looks pretty cut and dried up there. We're kind of short term. So, appreciate that. Okay. Thank you, sir. Have a good week. And it looks like you got enough on your plate to keep you entertained until then. So,
We'll be having some fun, Commissioner. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a great day.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you, sir. Okay. Let's move on to our agenda, budget review workshop type of thing.
Excuse me. Before we move on, we do have resolution 20-2020 that is to create a fund to track the Spark grants. That was in your packet.
It was in our packet, wasn't it?
And the numbering is correct, we already approved 21-2020. So this is 20.
Yeah, I had this ready for the last meeting, but we forgot.
I'll move to approve resolution 20-2020. Dr. Clifford.
Second.
Been moved and seconded for this resolution.
And just for the public information, the approximate amount is $10,924. Just a little bit.
Discussion for the resolution established the fund for the Spark grant. Hearing no more discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion is carried. Okay. Now, budget review. I've asked Robert, his process is modified from what we're used to, so he's going to kind of outline all the work he's been really working hard on for a while and give us an idea what where we're at, how to expect it, and go from there. Robert.
All right. First off, today, I'm not asking for any action by the Board of County Commissioners. In essence, it's a brief review summary of budgeting process for 2021. As I've informed you before, we established months ago a fiscal committee here at the county to do numerous things, and some of those items that we initiated here within the past few months is establishing some financial policies and guidelines for operations of the county, and we've shared many of those with you, whether it's the travel policy, reimbursement policies, and things of that nature, in order to establish a sound fiscal routine for the county. I think some of the items that we formalized were informally in place in some shape or form within the organization. We just went through the process of formalizing that and shooting those out to the various departments here. Once again, these are things that at least in the past that I've been a part of establishing to help build structure into not just the financial operations, but the budgeting operations of wherever I've been involved in. Additionally, then, as you recall, back in February and early March, we went through the process of establishing an inventory process. And one of the reasons for that, other than it's a requirement by statute, but the other aspect of it is that it allows us to do some proper planning for equipment replacement and capital improvements. That's one of the things that you'll see in this budget here, and we did note that a couple of times before, just as a reminder, that in essence, you'll see within this budget document, and you've got your free reminder in front of you, line items, and particularly on those departments within the general fund specifically, that we've included a annualized equipment replacement line item, if you will. And you'll see that down at the bottom, whether it is in capital improvements or in the transfer section of it. Once again, that's for the systematic replacement of things, and I'll use these as by way of example, but not by way of limitation. Things such as computers, printers, copy machines, things of that nature. That's established in order to maintain operations so that, those departments can continue, without any type of interruptions. What it does also is that in dealing with the tail end of your CIP plan, it eliminates the competition for a replacement of a computer competing against some other major improvement within the county. We don't have to trade off, if you will, operational equipment for things that are more capital in nature, more long-term in nature. So that was the purpose of doing a lot of this. So we've established and began the establishment of some financial policies and procedures within the organization that helps within the budgeting process. And you'll notice that all within your document that you have in front of you, your reminder. My briefing today is more than anything is to bring you up to speed on what we've done again. Encourage you to review the document. I would need some direction and a decision by Monday the 10th from the board to authorize its publication for a hearing. And the hearing would be on the 24th of August. That would meet your publication requirements and allow you additional time to review or ask any other questions. As you're well aware, is that one of the requirements of the county administrator is to develop an annual operating budget and present that to the Board of County Commission. That's what you have before you. My processes have been for the last 20-25 years is that I try and present a reasonable operation budget that does not commingle capital expenditures within it, so it's confusing. Those are things that the Board of County Commissioners are responsible for in the future in trying to provide a direction for county staff to execute. And we'll continue on that path of doing that. In short, you'll see within your document some changes in line items. And in general, I think you need to be aware of some of the things that we've changed within that document. The reason, more importantly, the reason why. On an annual basis, when you receive your audits, you'll also receive a listing of various adjustments to your audits, correcting entries and so forth. And one of the things that we began the process of doing here as a fiscal committee is to begin that process of properly coding your accounting system, your expenditures and so forth, so that it actually reflects the correct expenditures in the correct line item. You're not paying for an item just because you have money in this line item. You're actually coding it correctly so you actually know what that expenditure is for. What does that mean? What that means is that eventually that will reflect on your annual audit that you'll have fewer and fewer adjustments at the year end. So we're trying to create a mechanism by tightening up, if you will, and monitoring our accounting system much stronger so that it properly reflects your true expenditures. Some of the things you'll see in there is that, by way of example, there may not be an expenditure in a wage line item in a department anymore because of the fact that it was reclassified in the department where it actually should have been. And I'll just point that out in your general administrative and classified department, there was in the past some salaries that have been taken out of there that were within the administrative office. And so what we did was put those expenditures, which were truly paid for the administrative office, in the administrative office, and took it out of the unclassified. That's an example of what we've done. So you'll see that, and as you go further in years, you'll see that consistency build now. It also means that you'll see less journal entries or less transferring of funds between departments because of the way we're treating that. And I think that's important also to note, because then it becomes less confusing on where those money needs to be paid for. In short, this first year is going to be a transition for everybody, myself in particular. And it's a quest to actually simplify, and this is that transition to try and simplify things and be a little bit more open and direct about where these costs are truly coming from. Any questions at this point?
Not necessarily a question, I guess a comment. I think that is the goal that we as commissioners set out 2 or 3 years ago. We're just trying to go at it from a different angle. I think I like your angle better.
Okay.
But trying to get those costs exactly where they belong.
Any other questions?
Questions, guys?
I have a question. Are you presenting us a take it or leave it budget here? Or
Oh, absolutely not.
Where's our opportunity to whittle away on this 0.58 mil increase?
It is you have the opportunity to review and look at this and give me suggestions and recommendations on where we want to be at. What my hopes are is that if the board has a direction that they want to go within the budget, that they will provide me with that direction, and I can go back and make those adjustments. Once again, I'm trying to maintain a level of operations within this budget, and oftentimes it's easier. It's easier if I get some direction that says, you know what, we think we want to be, if you're uncomfortable where the mill levy's at or something to that effect, and you want to be down somewhere else, you just need to tell me it, and see it, and allow me the opportunity to go back in and try to make those adjustments.
That is the 17th is what you're hopefully to do that, and then the final budget hearing is the 24th.
Actually, it would be the 10th. I can make
Oh,
those
the 10th?
adjustments on the 10th. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
He was talking about publishing
Well,
right after that.
Correct.
Okay.
And we can work through that.
so we need to take our books home, guys, and do our homework.
And right now, as proposed, let me get back over here. You'll see a couple of things here. And let's not go to the certification page. We'll go ahead and go to the hearing page on this. And excuse the back here in the hearing summary on page 1. Yes, you'll notice just under about 5.95, approximately 5.95 mil increase. 0.6 of a mil. And if you have a question or concern about from that standpoint of, that's fine. I just like an opportunity if we need to adjust it, that I can do it, as opposed to going through a line item scratch out. You do have every one of the budgets in your book, every one of them, and what's being proposed. So there is opportunity to move. This is your budget.
Mr. Chairman.
Davis first.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Dave?
Mr. Chairman, this is Dave. Kind of a comment and then a question. Comment is we have a new form or format here, a new way of doing things. And that's not necessarily bad, but I'm curious, in the past, I have been used to a day when our auditors come, put up the request, the amount of dollars and whatnot. That's not happening this year that way. Is that correct?
I'm not anticipating it happening that way.
Well, okay, let me follow that up quickly then with, in the front of the budget book we have is a sheet of paper with a whole listing of departments.
That's correct.
And a reduction of $1,689,777. That's what you worked through so far, correct? To get to the.
Oh, yes. Okay, yes, yes.
To get to the point where to fund that amount would require a 2/10 or less than a 3/10 mil increase in taxes. Is that?
That's correct.
That's an accurate statement?
That's correct.
My final question along that line, on this sheet of paper with all of those departments, have they all been either involved in the discussions of setting the final numbers or in agreement with it, or where are we?
I've informed some of them as far as the reduction in those requests. A lot of them were capital requests that end up in your CIP plan. If you look, in particular, if you want to look at some of the requests made by the fairgrounds, all of them were capital requests. They were all in your CIP requests. This is an operating budget.
I'm thinking more in lines, Robert, of the outside agencies. Have they been?
We have not yet because this is not a finalized document.
Okay. So on the 10th, we will finalize that. That's what we're agreeing to, and then
That's what we're shooting for. Yes,
Okay.
that's correct.
I might respond that to a little bit. In years past, as a commission, we get in our budget workshop and say we want to whack off $1 million off of our budget. We don't truly know what we're actually asking the treasurer or the clerk operationally. We just take it from them. And in this format, Robert is more actually attuned that, okay, Dory's clerk's office actually needs that more than we realize, and so he's he's fitting it to our departments a little more accurately than we were able to do, because we don't understand exactly why that request was there.
my personal concern, then I'll let Juan ask his questions. My concern is on the 20, whenever we have this hearing, 24th, we've already published, we cannot raise the budget.
That's right.
And we can lower it, or we can reallocate. But we're gonna have some folks in the room that are gonna, if they've not been involved in the discussion, they're gonna be that day, I'll promise you. And so we'll have a decision to make about, do we keep things just as they are or go down?
I thought it was important that you received a document that, in my opinion, accurately reflects the operations of Finney County, and that's what I tried to
And I appreciate
within a reasonable attempt to maintain a reasonable mill levy or consistent mill levy. And that was my attempt in performing this.
Okay, thank you.
Lon?
Mr. Chairman, for those online, this is Lon. My two questions that are based around tax lid and how this all is, how the tax lid has been a part of your conversation and the requirements of that tax lid, because it is still in place, from a state perspective. And secondly, the focus from a state perspective has not been on mill levies, it's been on actual tax dollars.
Correct.
And so where do those two things play in the discussions that you've been having on, coming up with this operating budget. And lastly, I'll just say, I like this process.
Your, the calculation for your tax lid, is in the first few pages of the document, and it falls underneath the allowable amount for the tax lid. When you look at the notice of publication, you'll notice a couple of things there. You'll notice that the assessed valuation between the 2 years is within about $1 million. In fact, I think if I remember right, it's closer to $300,000 difference for assessed valuation.
Mhm.
So, what does that mean? In essence, then, in this particular instance, I'm saying that mill levy, trying to keep that relatively consistent with a consistent assessed valuation, is really one of the same. With about $300,000 difference, you see less than 1% increase in your, less than 1% increase in your assessed valuation.
And we are well below the 1.5,
Actually, it states 1.8.
1.8.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll say this, I appreciate all the work you've gone to here, saved us a lot of work.
We have an awful lot of, well, you see them here, Doris Beth and Trista was involved in it as well as Kelly in terms of all the benefit side of it and so forth, just trying to wrap our arms around it. I think it's also more important that the departments are really engaged in the entire process. And I think for the most part, I think we've tried to do that this year. I think we've engaged them and interviewed and spoke with them to get a good understanding of what their operations are and what their needs are and how we can achieve that over time.
Questions, Larry?
Request on this Finney County, the budget page. I'd like to have one more column put on there, the actual expenses for 19.
Okay.
And also, I fully realize that probably may not accurately represent what they spent because of the way you reallocated departments and what, but it would be nice to just have a base to start from. Also, a question on this page, one of the big ones that sticks out to me is on the employee benefit reduction. What exactly does that entail? On 170,000.
We may, yeah, I see it here. I do have it here. That one there, I think we, on the, if I remember correctly, on the health insurance aspect of it, we budgeted just a little bit closer. If you look at, when you go to your health insurance benefit, or excuse me, your benefits line item.
Would that be under what, general administration or?
Nope, it's actually employee benefit fund.
Sarah, I had a request come in, the public can't see some of those numbers. Can you aim the camera at the screen so the public can maybe see some of those numbers that are?
When you look, in particularly, we went off of the budget assumption that was provided for us. You can see it I'm on that there. This 5.25 million is the actual, what was estimated by your insurance carrier. And so we plug that in, so you'll see a little bit of reduction there. So overall, I think we're more accurately reflecting where those expenditures are coming out of on the employee benefit than at that point in time.
this other number here, and we'll get back to it. That number was a little bit stronger than it needed to be, so we're still accurately funding your health insurance and your benefits within the fund.
Okay. It's gonna be difficult on this setup, Dwayne, but when we get the new setup, it will be awesome.
Okay, public, you could not hear her. She's chastising me that it's very difficult with the equipment she has. We are going to upgrade this dramatically so that you may see the same screens that we're seeing, I hope. But at this point in time, she's trying. If you're not seeing it, we're sorry.
It's too small.
It's just not working for her. I apologize to the public that you cannot see these numbers.
Yeah, Dr. Clifford, I have a comment that the mill levy increase that I calculated is about 290,000.
Just under 300, that's
is
correct.
pretty close to the reduction in transfers of 342,000. Obviously, we can't count on the state ever giving us our LABTR back, and I understand we can't keep draining our reserves because the failed state policy of the tax lid may affect our ability to replenish reserves. But is there a reason the transfers are down significantly compared to past years? I don't see a breakdown of the transfers here.
Right,
I see the number.
Yeah, the scheduled transfers, there's this transfer page. I can flip over that. The scheduled transfers are down a bit. And you'll notice one from Public Works in particular that was reduced. It was interesting to find out as I flip back through here on pages. I almost have to hold on as I flip through here. One of the things that, as we were talking about, is that in visiting with Public Works is that your chip and seal project, I'm probably gonna look back over here to John. That thing was normally paid for out of special highway, is that correct? Some of the chip and seal project?
No, it was this last time, there was not planned budget. So the first time we bought rock is what wasn't planned.
Sure, right,
So that
right.
was taken out of special highway, where the project itself was put in other contractual, has been in the budget.
Okay. And what I was getting at is that oftentimes we would pay for operating expenses out of your special highway fund, which is traditionally set aside more for projects. In doing so, then at the end of the year, you would transfer from your road and bridge fund into the special highway. All I did was allocate those expenses directly to road and bridge and forego the transfer. So I'm paying for it directly out of road and bridge instead of the special highway paying for it, then road and bridge reimbursing back costs, if you follow. So that is one example of it. Your actuals are always going to be higher on your transfer. They just always will, because oftentimes you'll wait till, just like this year, we'll wait till the fourth quarter before we start evaluating what monies we're going to transfer so we can accomplish some of our long-range planning, such as your CIP and your road improvement projects. So the better we do in managing our funds throughout the year, the more we'll be able to transfer at the end of the year, as long as we maintain a sound fund balance in all those funds. So we look at the fund balance first, and then we look at the opportunity to transfer second, so that we can meet the future needs and future project costs.
But employee health, we typically have a very large transfer to offset that $5 million employee benefit number.
Say that one more time.
There's no transfer for county employee health currently. Line 17.
Correct, there's nothing scheduled right at this very moment.
Yeah, just so you're aware.
Yeah, and that's not to say that it still can't happen.
Correct, because we've always had at least a initial philosophy of trying to hold the mill levy steady. Can't always do that, but I just want you to know where we'd like to go.
And if that is the direction of the board this day, I can work on that this week and bring you back something different, if that is the direction of the board to do that today.
It's mine.
Okay.
Could you restate that a little bit?
It seems like in the past we had significant transfers from the employee benefit fund. I don't know if it came from the.
Actually, it goes into, you'll have one transfer into the health department, and we can still make that at year end. And that is for your employee wellness program. And then at other times, you'll make it into, maybe back into the general fund for whatever the reason being. Once again, we're changing a few things in terms of line item costs. So hopefully we won't need to make those types of transfers. We still may need to make it into the health department for the employee wellness program that you have. But I think we want to see where those costs truly lie.
Okay, I mean, we'll have audit committee on the 5th, so I'll get a little better idea of where these fund balances are. I realize you can't continue to use reserves till they're totally depleted.
Correct.
I guess I hold out hope that someday the state may give us our revenue sharing money back like they're statutorily required to do, so we can get property tax relief. But I realize that's probably not this year.
We'll hope, sure.
Larry?
Question, I know we've been having a little problem with juvenile detention center and getting it open and running, and so the 413,000 current amount here you want transferred, are we still, how are we getting along there?
Right now we are, well, we have a couple of things going. One, we changed the funding equation a little bit for the juvenile detention. Originally it was, we kind of been funding it at 85% of the true costs. We went back and recalculated the funding allocation to the 14 counties that are involved and assessed 100% of the cost. And the other thing then is that we're looking at we're looking at, you have secure care that you hope to get running sometime. And then there's another aspect of it, which is
Child in need of care?
Yes, child in need of care program. Now, that was one that we had up in North Central Kansas Regional Juvenile Detention Facility. The facility structurally was set up to where it made it an easy transition. Very little capital involved to get it going. Reimbursement back to the county was in excess of $200 a day per child. That's something that we're looking at, but we can't. You still right now have about your average daily count is somewhere around 4 or 5 kids a day. looking at Beth on that, because I think that was the number that we last saw. So you still need to keep a fraction of that your detention, and you have 14 cells right now, rooms for detention. You're using about a third of that. So we need to figure out if there's another way of doing it without investing a lot of capital in order so we can get up and running quickly on that.
So we're not receiving any funds from the Child in Need of Care of yet.
Correct.
So we're still in the process of getting that certified.
That's correct, and you heard Roger today talk about the service agreement from Johnson Controls for your fire alarm system. That's one of the other things that needed to be put in place, as well as getting the fire alarm system certified and approved.
This has been a long process. Long process.
Yes.
I know it's not all on your watch, but it's on ours.
Yeah.
Further questions at this point? We've got a lot of paper to look through before Monday.
But, you know, I'm kind of like Dr. Clicker. I'd like to see a budget with flat mill levy and see what it looks like.
Okay. And in order to do that, we'll look at a reduction of somewhere around that $300,000 in your current expenditures for operating. Is that the direction by the board?
Be worth looking at.
Mr. Chairman, I'm focused on tax dollars, more than I am mill levy, but, and I understand the explanation a little bit of both, but more flat from the tax dollar standpoint, yes.
Well, again, like Commissioner Jones pointed out earlier, we can decrease the printed
Can't go up,
that we can't.
But if you would look at
increase
that
it.
ahead of time.
Yeah. If you want, you can look at that ahead of time, that's great. But
Okay. All right. So I will go ahead and work then on looking at reductions of somewhere around that $300,000 mark within your budgets per home, to get to that level mill levy is what I'm hearing. Correct?
correct.
Okay.
And if you have level valuation, level mill levy, level transfers, then there is no increase on the dollar side either. Well, I do the math, but.
Yep.
No, I do. But we don't know what that final valuation is for a while.
November 1st. Yeah. All right.
Further discussion on the budget review.
You know, unless the state really throws us a curve, this valuation should be pretty close.
I would say so.
You know, unless they, I don't know if they're gonna make any changes on oil and gas or use value appraisal on ag land.
I don't think they will between now and the end of the year.
Do you expect to, have you heard anything, Maria? No.
We should pretty much be set. I don't think you got utilities.
All right, that is what we will work on now. And then we'll go ahead and we'll add 2019 actuals to that.
That'd be greatly appreciated.
And then I will show you what I've done as far as any reductions, additional reductions then for
Okay.
to meet your objective. All right?
Fair enough.
Very, very good.
And if you wanna just email us those instead
We
of,
can do that. Yep.
instead of waiting, I'm good, cause I wanna take my book with me.
Okay. We can do that.
Homework.
Homework. A lot of homework.
We'll have time after tomorrow.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Very good. Thank you. Thank you for the direction.
Board governance, comments, anything? Okay. Well, it's gonna still keep you visiting, Robert. Any further on your report? Over and above the budget.
No, I think we have a very busy week ahead of us, both with the Spark grant and your budget.
I think you do.
And apparently, I think Dory is still having an election. Is that right? Okay. All right.
Pressure's almost off. Almost.
Yeah, we've actually had over 800 voters for early voting.
That's a record, is it not?
In 2016 primary, it was 362, and in the 2018 primary, it was 329. So we've more than doubled the amount of early voters. I'm not sure if that has to do with coronavirus or just getting the word out there more, but so it's pretty incredible. We've also increased the number of mail ballots. We mailed out about 450, and we've gotten 300 back so far. So
It will be interesting to see what percentage that you first mailed out received back.
yes, right now we're at about a 62% return rate. So we'll see how it plays out by the end of the election. So people do need to have their.
Have you, in the past, what has it been? Have you just off the top of the head?
You know, they didn't keep track of how many they mailed out. So, you know, it's something that we kind of track manually.
Mhm.
They didn't really keep track of it in the system, so. So I don't know how many they sent out in the past, but in the 2016 primary, only 100 ballots were voted by mail. We're already at 300 this year if they came back. And in 2018, only 84 people voted by mail. So
it's a
our
speed.
return rate on mail is also up this year, but I think what we sent out is more this year as well because of COVID, so.
And if I'm not mistaken, statewide, they're about 50% return on the mail ballots, if I saw the numbers correctly the other day.
Yeah, I think so. I know the Secretary of State released that I shared with you guys this morning in the pass around about the turnout.
I think it was around 50% or maybe a little bit higher that had been received so far.
And they broke all kinds of records for the number of mail ballots sent out across the state, so
Tremendous amount.
from like 50,000 up to 350,000. It's pretty incredible. We did have an early board this year that allowed us to kind of stay in our office and focus on preparing for the election, which always takes more time in a primary. And so that early board has done a fantastic job. They've been great, so.
Did you have trouble recruiting poll workers this year since with the virus issue?
You know, not a lot. We did have several that did not want to participate this year, but we also had some others that saw the ad in the newspaper or saw a post on Facebook and gave us a call. So we've got some new people this year, which is great.
Good.
But based on the changes I've been making operationally at how the polling locations work, we used to have a table for each precinct at a location, which meant 3 people per precinct. I've changed up how that works, and everybody goes to one place to sign in, no matter what precinct you are. So it kind of streamlines that and lets us have fewer people. So far this year, I was able to reduce that need by about 12 people. And so, you know, that's just saving us money on the back end as far as paying those. And I think it streamlines the whole process for voters as well. So we've had a lot of positive comments on the way that works.
Commission reports. Larry, start with you.
Oh, I got to attend several political functions along with some of my compadres here on the commission, so I've been doing that. Also had an interview with the parametric folks, which was interesting. It was kind of interesting their take on the request, you know, whether it's going to be long range, short range. We even talked about rent forgiveness and mortgage forgiveness and things like that, which I wasn't much in favor of. But other than that, that's what we're doing.
I met with Kansas Electric Cooperatives, which was interesting since we looked at that solar build policy today, because everybody has to pay for power generation, the potential to have the power. So somebody with solar is probably not going to disconnect from the grid. If the sun's not out, they're going to need a wire And the fee formulas have to be adjusted for that, sort of like the electric cars. They're using the roads, but they're not paying gas taxes. So you're going to see at the state level a little bit of a battle over who pays for what, because we have to have the generation capability out there, even if somebody sticks solar panels on their house. So kind of an interesting discussion. Or we have to have the roads, even if someone's not paying gas tax. So fees have to be adjusted. Comes mental health, Matt, very interesting discussion. There's great concern that there's a lot of abuse that normally is discovered by teachers. And so the fact that we're going to start school here imminently, they're worried that there'll be a little bit of a tsunami of mental health and abuse issues, kids and spouses as well. The suicide thing, I think we all worry about, but we haven't seen an uptick. There's some still going on the farm for other reasons, but there are threats, and EMS, I think Skylar would tell us, they're responding to a lot of threatened suicide that they're not occurring. So that's very good. We had not met in person for 4 months, so it's a very good session. Lisa's doing a good job. You probably saw in the pass around the Compass is not requesting any CARES Act money from us, which I think is admirable. And that's also true of Victory Electric over in Dodge, where we met with the electric cooperatives there. They're not requesting, nor is Garden State Co-op. So a lot of companies are, I think, acting very responsibly and not just saying, well, there's some free cash, let's go grab it. It's really nice to see that. That's all I have.
Okay, thank you. Dave?
Well, let me report on a couple things. Had a library board meeting, and something that they are doing, and so that you're aware of it, the library board chairperson is heading up a search committee, is probably the wrong term, but to go out and seek proposals for somebody other than the present contract to potentially manage the library. Our costs go up year after year, and in this year's budget, we got caught with being underfunded what the county funds and what LS&S, get the right acronym, charges management fees. They wrote off or held in abeyance the collection on those, but they're going to take a look and see what's available. That may involve a little bit of county commission input at some point, because that's generally a 5-year term with a yearly renewal on the contract. The only other thing I want to report, maybe more than me, received a phone call from a lady concerned about the water issue in Towns Riverview South. And it just coincidentally happened that right after I talked to her, I had an opportunity to visit with Mr. Towns' son-in-law and ask him how things are going. Maybe I don't want to step on Lon's area here, but he said they had the second well running, had good pressures, even to the south end of Towns Riverview South. The pressures do come down as people water yards, but they're still up in the 50, 60 pound range without all of that extra watering. And then they had to send samples to the state. And so the state mails them a bottle. So they had to wait for 2 weeks plus for this bottle to show up. And when it did, then the state advised them, because of the warm temperatures, not to mail that bottle of sample until the next Monday. So they waited till the next Monday, mailed it. When it got to Topeka, the bottle had a leak in it. So to start this thing all over again, they did have a report back from the state that the water sample met nitrate standards. It was okay, but they had to send it off somewhere else for the uranium study, and they were still waiting on that. Maybe Lon has an update, but it does sound like they have principally fixed the problem where the state maybe will relieve them of some of the restrictions. The only other thing, I filled out a Survey Monkey for our Spark grant, and then had a couple meetings with Spark, with Jeff and the folks that are contractors, and it's been an interesting experience. I've said I was confused. That's probably pretty obvious, but boy, there's a lot of stuff to go through with all they're doing for us. So anyway, that's about the size of my report for today.
Well, a couple of things, Mr. Chairman. First of all, on the comment about Victory Electric, it's because I'm continuing to pay my electric bills in Gray County that Victory has not had to use CARES.
Keep paying.
No, it is tongue in cheek. A couple of things on the town's water thing. Yes, they're still having to haul the water out there for in the big tanks for some of the water usage, and I'm assuming they're still, I haven't seen anything lately, but I'm assuming they're still providing the drinking water, because yes, they're still waiting on the uranium test to come back. But the pressure issue has been fixed, and I think I said this one other time, they separated our subdivision in the north from the south subdivision, so the pressure in both subdivisions is fine. The boiler advisory has been rescinded on the north subdivision, but has yet to be rescinded on the south subdivision. So
Boiling doesn't help you or anything.
you want, no,
Yeah, that's-
but they won't rescind the boiler advisory until all of these tests come back correct. But and I communicated late last week with one of the KDHE people, and I haven't heard a response yet to see if they can give any indication on that rescinding that order. The other two things, and Roxanne's here too, but through the CBB board, Roxanne gave us a report on the last quarter, and I'm not going to go through all the numbers, but it will be April, May, and June. And the what do we call that? Transient tax, I guess, I always call it bed tax, but I get corrected on that. For the quarter is down to just between 38 and 39%. It was down 32% in April, 50% in May, and 35% approximately in June. So substantial hit to the transit gas tax over that last quarter, which was expected. I mean, we would have anticipated that, but just thought I'd let you know those numbers. And then lastly, the one thing I'm monitoring from a state perspective on this CARES Act is the $60 million that's been allocated to Kansas for broadband expansion. And the last meeting last week, they chose to delay any decisions about dispersing those funds, but that, I think they're going to talk about it this week in their meetings, if I'm not mistaken. So we need to keep an eye out on that $60 million that's sitting there in Topeka that is earmarked for broadband expansion. So that'd be very helpful if they would release some of those dollars for the high-speed connectivity that we're looking for. And then lastly, just more a question, because I may be running into a conflict on one of these dates, but we have a meeting next Monday, Mr. Chairman. We have a meeting on the 13th for the Spark. We have another regular meeting on the 17th, and then budget hearing on the 24th.
That's correct.
And the 24th, I may or may not be here because I already have a previous commitment, and I didn't realize we were having budget hearing that day. So
hopefully we have the heavy lifting done before that.
Right,
So.
and I hope so too. But just for your information, that's an iffy one for me because of a previous commitment. Thank you.
For my part, I have visited with Roxanne. The fair went really quite well for the consideration and how they had to get things done. The premium auction was well received on how they did that. If you do not know that, they took a picture of the 4-H'er, the exhibitor, and the project, and then that was put up on the screen, and the individual was stood up there in front. So worked really well, and they got rid of a lot of the shuffle of animals and stuff, and I think that was well received. they're gonna hold the buyers, and, but, might be something that continue forward with.
Was the revenue up or down?
Uh,
We averaged $1,100 per animal.
Wow.
That's very good,
That's
absolutely.
really good.
That's because one guy thought he had a high bid of 17 and he ended up paying 2,100 on one of them. That's because he wasn't listening well enough.
Would that be you?
No, it was the one in my copy group, but it was not me.
Well, good for him.
Well, we gave him a hard time.
But anyway, all in all, I think it was for conditions, it was moving off quite well. As far as Fair Board members, you guys all know that we've had a resignation off the board. They're in works, hopefully 3 or 4. The goal is 10 new members, not 10 new members, but get up to 10 members of the Fair Board. Some of the folks that did not get selected to the district extension board that are on the existing extension, some of those have expressed interest, and they would be more than great members, so hope that develops. But we'll have later on, when things can maybe calm down, we'll get that Fair Board situation straightened out a little bit more. I did go to the economic development meeting, and I followed that up with a one-on-one with Tom and Lana on some of the projects that are coming down the pike. As you guys did, a lot of meetings with the Spark Grant, probably a few more than you guys have, with parametrics, getting that going. And then finally, we had 2 Great Plains development meetings. They continue to be quite busy for this time of year, and they actually have a chance of breaking even, making money. So those guys are quite excited. A couple of them are still working at home though, so it does kind of complicate their operations a little bit. Other than that, I think that's the bulk of it. Anything further?
Anthony is here from Mercy Management. He's been working the town's Riverview water project. Didn't know if you would entertain wanting to hear from him a little bit on
Sure.
what's going on.
Yeah, absolutely. Come forward. I'd like to hear
If that's okay.
perspective from your side of the fence.
Thanks, Anthony.
Good morning. So I just have a brief update on what we've been experiencing. So on July 6th, we submitted the signed resolution stating a public emergency or local emergency to support Towns Riverview South. And on July 23rd, we made a formal request for resources, specifically bottled water, and that request was denied. When we started visiting with them about why, they said it was based on information they received from KDHE, which is that this is the sole responsibility of the landowner and not of any county. So Towns Riverview landowners are responsible to provide drinking water, which they are on a trailer, but the boil advisory is still in effect. So, and then we were also told by KDHE that on August 6th, a hearing is scheduled, and we've been told that a decision will be made whether to go to trial or not at that point. So it could change how this thing goes.
So you have an interesting week too then, don't you?
It's always interesting.
Questions?
Well, I didn't know the hearing date. I knew they had a hearing for the appeal, but I wasn't sure of the dates. Appreciate that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything further? Meeting is adjourned.
Go vote.
Go vote.
Early enough.
Did that.
I got vote today.